Hey, how's everybody doing? Welcome to another installment of College Planning Untangled. I'm here with Dr. Sue, and I'm going to let her say her last name because I know I'm going to mess that up. But we are here today to talk about what Sue does, and that is helping college students advocate for themselves and giving parents information on how to help students advocate for themselves while they're in college. So, Sue, how are you doing today?
Hi, very well, Chris, and thank you for having me. My name is Sue Orablo, and if you struggle remembering that, if you think about the actor Rob Lowe, and if you were to see him on the street, you'd say, "Oh, Rob Lowe."
Oh, Rob Lowe. Ah, there
There
you
you go.
go. I love it.
Unfortunately, our freshmen probably don't know who Rob Lowe is, but the parents will for
Yeah,
sure.
the parents, oh yeah, especially the moms, we'll all know. Yeah, so Sue, the reason why I wanted to have you on today is I love that you're helping students that are in college because, we've got all the college advisors that are out there to help kids get in,
Hmm.
and then they kind of are done because they did their job, right? That's what we pay them to do.
Hmm.
Um, I kind of come before that, helping students figure out why they're going to college, what they want to do as far as a career path, and how to stay happy within college because they have a plan, a goal, all that good stuff. And then I love now that I can kind of round that out with somebody that can help them while they're in college, advocating for themselves when changes happen or when things arise. But I'm going to have you give a little bit more of a robust, just thoughts around how you help students so that we can get parents, the help that they need and the help the student needs. Because a lot, we went to school 30 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So it's hard to even know what to ask or what to expect or when they will need help. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure thing. And it's kind of funny when you talk about our when we went to school. My dad, who just turned 90, went to Harvard actually, and he laughs at me almost every time I tell him what I do. And not because he disrespects me, but he doesn't understand the complexity of it. And he keeps saying, I don't understand how complex it is. Well, if you're a parent or a student who's in college today, you know how complex it is. There are very diverse rules and regulations. There are different processes, different policies, and they can vary by institution. So you have a university, and sometimes it's hard to even know what's the difference between a university, a college, and a school. And so, I could explain all those things to people, but you may have a university that has a number of colleges and schools within it. And within those colleges and schools have different programs. And I might say to a student, well, you're pursuing a minor. Do you know if those credits will also count towards your major? And in the, behind the scenes, we usually call that sharing credits. And typically the student doesn't know that. It's a very complicated question. But what's concerning is that if I ask an advisor at a particular college, can you share X amount of credits? If you get the answer, I don't know, or I'm not sure, that's a red flag that you want to make sure, because simple questions like that can have very complicated answers and significant impacts if you get the wrong answer or make the wrong decision.
Well, it is, Sue, because let's go back to when we were going to college. If you mess things up a little bit, it might mean an extra semester and it might mean another $1,500, right?
Yeah,
Not a ton of money.
yeah,
When kids today make a mistake, now you're in the 15 and 20,000 and more, where if you don't have enough credits, then it's substantial as far as the, pocketbook goes for sure.
yeah.
So
And we talk about advocacy. The biggest advocacy anyone could do is stand up for themselves, know what questions to ask, know what tools and resources are available to them, know how to get the support and answers that they need. And that's the most complicated part. I've worked with a lot of, I've been up in administration and had very angry, frustrated parents call me. I mean, to the point of maybe screaming and yelling a little bit. Why? Because they're frustrated. They just want to get the help that they need and they're not getting it. So that's one of the things that I do with my new endeavor is be able to say, okay, have you asked this person this question? Have you, let me look up that resource for you and help you find it. So getting that support, whether it's, from me, from the parent, You want to hold the university responsible for delivering that support, but don't expect that it's always going to be 100% perfect or easy to navigate, because it's not.
Well, it's not. And I think too, part of the challenge that I see, Sue, is, and I've got two boys, one that just graduated, one that's still in college. A lot of times they don't know the questions to ask, or even if the question needs to be asked, so it's helping them, I'm putting words in your mouth, but it's also helping them to know when to ask certain questions, especially when they have a bump in the road and they need to change a major, or, something else happens within their college career. And I would also assume, and you tell me if I'm right, that if they have an opportunity to get a minor, that they know that they have that opportunity to, like, they're like 2 classes away or 1, 3 credits away, that they can take advantage of that stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
let me tell you a little bit about my past, Kristen, because I think it's interesting. For years, I have trained and developed academic advisors. This is what I do. This is, I've been very, institutions will hire me to do this. And one of my big points that I always press with advisors is anticipate the student's needs, right? So, because you have catalogs and you have online resources and everything, but the reason I believe that advisors not only are invaluable, but will always have a place in higher ed, is because we can anticipate their needs. We can know what we should tell them before they have to ask, because they don't know to ask. The problem is, and that's one of the reasons I started my higher ed partner, is that some advisors will embrace that and some will not. And so what I say to students and parents is, if you see evidence that your needs are not being anticipated, you anticipate them. So ask those questions. Like, for instance, I always use the example of withdrawing from a course. It's a big decision. It's a huge decision. It has many, many implications that a student may or may not be aware of. Back in our day, it was no big deal, but nowadays it's a big deal. So let's say a student goes to an advisor and says, is it too late to withdraw from a course? The right answer might be, no, the deadline is next Friday. So is that misadvising? No. Is it good advising? Absolutely not. Because they haven't talked to the student about why they want to withdraw, what other options are available to them. Maybe they don't need to withdraw at all. Maybe it's just a conflict between the professor and the student. Could be any number of things. But even if the student says, no, I really want to withdraw, the proper answer is not Friday. The answer is, let's talk about what would happen if you withdraw. And is this course a prerequisite to another course? Is it important for you? Maybe it's not offered for another year. And so you were talking about that scenario where maybe you have to take an extra class or something. No, it could be really impactful depending on the major in the program. So if the advisor, and that's one of the things I'm pushing a lot and emphasizing with my new endeavor, if the advisor is not providing you that information, then ask about it so that you get the information you need.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you a quick story about a client that I'm working with right now. His grade point isn't where it needs to be able to get into his the study that he wants to get into. So we met with an advisor and we were like, okay, GPA is at X. We need to get it up to Y, and we need to do it in a year to be able to get into this next course that he wants to get into. And we had to go in with really specific questions about that. And it was interesting because this advisor was not able to give us, okay, if you do these things, you will be able to get to and this student had to get to a 2.5 to get into this program. They gave us some ways to do that, but they weren't able to calculate it. And I'm kind of a fact girl. I want to make sure I have my facts straight so that, this kid, if he's gunning he's trying to be a radiologist, if he's gunning for that and we get down a year down the line and he can't hit those grades, then that's a whole year wasted,
Yeah.
So how would have you handled that situation?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, it's important to know that academic advising is not just picking classes. And that's what a lot of people think. So they don't often seek out their advisor for things like this. They're actually kind of embarrassed sometimes because they think, well, it's just picking out classes and I know what classes that I need. No, in this case, I call it academic planning. We need to be very strategic about how we help that student plan academically. So what do? We start with a couple of things. First of all, what happened? Why was the GPA the way it was? What was giving him a difficult time? Was it a transitional thing, an adjustment thing, an academic thing? So I asked a student
COVID,
straight out.
COVID
Yeah,
thing, you know? Yeah.
absolutely. And so I asked them, tell me a little bit about it. I have to be honest with COVID, it was very, very, very impactful. But also I think some students used it. And so I drill down. If I hear COVID, I want to know, what about COVID? What was it? Was it your first time online? Was it the lack of support? So we drill down, we look at those things that might have caused it. So that's one thing that we need to address. And that's a whole separate thing unto itself. Then we need to make an academic plan. So the first thing we do, any institution should have a GPA calculator. You can find them online even if you Google it. However, you have to be careful. If you do find a GPA calculator, find one that's generic. Because if your school has a plus minus system and the other school does not, then it's not going to be accurate. But anyway, so each institution should indeed. So that would be one of the questions you ask. Do you have a GPA calculator? Where can I find it? And you may want to actually look right on the institution's website. Then we want to say, well, what? I mean, so let's say we figure out that you need to get a 2.25 for the next 2 semesters in order to get, well, you wouldn't if you said you need to get to a 2.5, but whatever it might be. So right. This is the goal. So for instance, coming out of a less than 2.0 semester, I'm not going to suggest to a student that next semester you need a 4.0 because that's not a reasonable expectation. So we want to make reasonable, achievable goals. And we want to be strategic in what classes too. So in this case, if this student, did you say science is going into, was it rad tech?
To be a radiologist technician, yeah.
Yeah. So that's intense. So the courses that you need, which ones are prerequisite that we have to get out of the way? What can we balance it with? We don't want to overload you with your sciences or maths because that's setting you up probably not for success. So that's what I would do with that student. I'd be very careful to know what happened before. How can we, I talk to students about train tracks. On one rail, we're going to talk about the personal, whatever happened, the motivation, the academic, the tutoring, whatever it is. And on the other rail, we're going to look at the logistics, the nuts and bolts. What courses do you need? What courses would make sense to take together? And maybe that plan changes what the school has written in their catalog. And if that's the case, we need to find out from the advisor what happens if I don't take the prescribed sequence that you've got here written.
Right.
What would happen? How can I do a different plan? And that's what we hold the institution accountable for.
Okay. And then we do have a question. Carolyn wrote the GPA calculator for college or for your high school. So Carolyn, we're talking now specifically when a student is in college and how to help them kind of advocate for themselves and navigate through that process. Yeah. And, you know, if your high school isn't giving your daughter a weighted GPA, sometimes colleges don't take the weighted GPA. You should be able to get that though from your high school. So I'm not quite sure what's happening there. And that might be something that we can talk about offline as well on how to get that from your high school. But keep the questions coming. We'd love to answer them. Yeah.
And the nice part, Carolyn, once you get into college, there's not all that weighted GPA and all that. It's pretty straightforward for the most part. Most institutions I don't want to say most institutions, but it's very common to have a 3-credit system where each course is 3 or 4 credits, which represent the amount of hours that they spend in class each week. And then with that comes a grade, and it's usually going to either be on a 4-point scale. Well, it's going to be on a 4-point scale regardless, but it may or may not have pluses and minuses in their system. But it's much more simple than the weighted GPA.
Yeah. So, and Sue, like you had said something, man, and I wanted to come back and ask you about it, but I will think of it. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you think that parents would want to know about how to reach out to you or why to reach out to you? So, you know, what situations are they going to get into where they're like, oh, darn, we don't know. Let's get Sue involved.
Mm-hmm. It's really quite exciting because people have been coming to me for very diverse reasons, even beyond what I had originally envisioned when I decided to start my higher ed partner. They can come to me basically with any questions that they normally have, that they start to scratch their head and go, wait, my student needs help, or I don't understand this, come to me. I'm going to be, of course, we all offer, free consultations. So, of course, I'll spend some time with you to find out what it is that you need. And then I'm going to be able to tell you, I mean, my level of intervention is going to be based on the client's interest, whether it's just, hey, ask them A, B, and C, or the difference between a faculty advisor and a professional advisor is this, or this is where you can find this information. So you might just say, Sue, can you help me understand this? Good example. I had a student who had seen two advisors at her very prestigious private university, very expensive, seen two advisors, had no idea what she was supposed to do. And she was about to quit, and her mom contacted me. She said she's about to come home. And I met with a student, and I just looked at her, what we call a degree audit. It's a list of the courses they need, the requirements, and the progress they're making. And I just explained it to her. I just read through it with her, and that's all she needed. So,
Right. And so,
yeah.
yeah. And that, I got to tell you, that's a big reason why I do what I do too, is helping them with this career path, because when they can see the end goal and they know the steps to get there, this stuff becomes really simple. Right. And that I'm with her. I mean, it's frustrating when you just can't get the facts. Go back to being the fact girl here, where I'm like, just give me the facts. Tell me how to get there. This doesn't have to be this complicated, right?
Right.
And
And
it's
if you
sad that
need
it
a good
has to be.
advisor, that's the key. I mean, I would
Yeah.
love to be that good advisor for your families, for these families, but the institution has hopefully good people. You just need to be able to find them. You need to be able to assess them, because they're not all good. If you get a faculty advisor and you're a business student and you say, I'm thinking of pursuing a psychology minor, and that faculty member sends you over to psychology, those are bells, and those are times that you go, wait a minute, why can't this advisor help me with this? It's usually a sign of they're too busy, or they're not interested, or they don't feel expert in that area.
Right.
So anyway, anytime you kind of have that moment or that head scratching, or if it doesn't make sense in some way, just contact me, reach out to me. I charge by the hour, but I also do have 10 and 20 hour packages available. And I like to think of those as so the 10 hour package would be a 10% discount, 20% would be a 20% discount. And I like to think of those as helping carry your student through their experience, whether it's through that first year or throughout their entire program.
Well,
So
and who should be contacting you, the parent or the student, or both?
either.
Okay.
Yep. I mean, I work with the student, and college, that's one of the things for parents of college students, it's a transition. And it's a tough transition to all of a sudden you've been doing for your child for 18 years, and all of a sudden you hand them off to somebody else. And it's a scary feeling. So I'm there for the parents to explain the process and support, but I encourage the student to act independently and make their own decisions, because they are adults in the eyes of the law and the eyes of the institution. I have had some parents go, this is so frustrating because no one will talk to me. And I say to them, well, there is something called the release of information, and you're welcome to get one. And then they're relieved. But then I tell them a little bit about that. And I say, the more if you talk to the institution, your student probably will feel like but will be left out. And we want the student involved in their own decision making and academic planning.
Absolutely. And, I advocate for that 1,000 times over, because the kids, they do need to take control, that this is their life. They need to be able to do this stuff. And I'll go back to the reason why I really like what you do is there still is that bridge with the parent, because in a lot of cases, it's the parents' funds that we're spending, a lot of them, it's the kids, and we're putting them in more debt. So it is an important thing that I think a parent does have to be a part of in some way, shape, or form. So I'm glad, that they have you as an outlet to do that. Anything else that we need to talk about? I know one of the things that you wanted to make sure that people thought about is understanding their resources and who's out there. Did we miss anything on that?
I don't think so. I mean, you want to, well, I'm going to do a shameless plug, Kristen. May I do a shameless plug?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because it's information. All right. I do have, there we go. There we go. I do have a book called The Pocket Advisor, A Family Guide to Navigating College. It's on Amazon, anywhere you want to find it online. The reason I bring this up is because I list the tools and resources they should be looking for. And
Yep.
so, what's a degree audit? I've asked students, do you know how to find your degree audit? And they say, well, no, I don't even know what that is. And I say, it might be called, you know, Sharkapalooza, whatever. They call them cute little names. They're like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. So they need to know where the degree audit is. They need to know how to read it. They need to know who their advisor is. Is it a professional advisor, a faculty advisor? How do you contact them? You need to know about things like curriculum guides, the catalog. Catalog is great. Catalog is what we call it, your Bible. That's the rules of the game. And they change those. And so what happens if they change the rules from the time you started until it's like maybe you're a
Yep.
junior and they changed the rule? What rules can they change on you without a big deal? And they're not going to change the curriculum on you. Don't worry about that. But those are all important things to know. And most students do not know any of that. They just kind of pop into their advisor. I'd say as a minimum, please see your advisor at least once a semester prior to registration, not when registration opens. Otherwise, you'll be very frustrated. Any of those parents that have been frustrated, or if, it looks like maybe Carolyn has got a high schooler headed to college, it may be frustrating that first registration go around, because freshmen and incoming freshmen, oftentimes the seniors, juniors, sophomores, they've all registered already. So sometimes your very first experience might not be the greatest. You're like, well, why am I taking these random classes at 8:00 in the morning? This is
Right.
not ideal.
Because you're a freshman.
Exactly. So then that's the dues. We've all paid them, but make sure that second semester, which is now, make sure you're registered. I mean, most schools right now, it's December 6th. All registration for the spring should be open, should be well underway. So people need to get registered early, and meet with their advisor prior to registration so they don't have to wait and get frustrated.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to have you put your book in the Facebook page and on the YouTube page, and we will make sure that people can get to that and also get to your information. Thank you so much. And I do think that we're probably going to get some questions that we may want to do a follow-up conversation. So I appreciate you being with me today.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Bye-bye now.
Bye.